Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. BL and I are very excited to talk to you today about Virgo and Pisces. So keep your questions, and we will be very happy to attend to that. So we have Michael Stacy, who is working in the background there, and BL and I, who will be presenting this. So here we go. So these are the last two of the polarities that we are going to be addressing, although next month, we still want to do a finale whereby we will be offering you a variety of different esoteric ways to look at a chart. Some things that we've not taught before, and I don't know if anybody has taught this before, so it's going to be really a big surprise. So please attend, and hopefully you'll enjoy that as well. So here we go. So the sixth house is normally the house that Virgo looks after. Its rays shows here as second and sixth. I would have preferred that reversed because it's the sixth ray, I think, that is the personality ray of Virgo, while the second ray, I believe, is the soul ray. And it's on the mutable cross, as is Pisces. Remember, they're opposites. And this one is an earth element. Some of the dates that we offer here are anywhere from August 23rd to September 22nd. Sometimes we'll see the 22nd of the month, and then ending on the 23rd. We just never know, what it shows up, but here's what we offer. So it's the sixth sign of the zodiac. And interesting, if you go the other direction, the way the eras go, and the way the equinoxes and all that kind of stuff goes, it ends up being the ninth month, not the sixth. And that in itself is interesting because it's the ninth month that we women generally give birth. And this is a sign that gives birth. It gives birth, as we know, to the Christ principle within the cave of the heart. But we'll get to that. It is associated with health, with work, and with service. So wherever your Virgo is, that is the house in which you will be working with health, offering service. It rules the whole tummy area, the intestines, the colon, and that's why, and that is really where the solar plexus would be, right around there. And that's why a lot of people in our day and age are suffering from abdominal indigestion and need Tums and all those other things, because it's the solar plexus that ends up affecting the entire tummy area where these intestines rule. And because Virgo has so much to do with health, it's an area that is of great concern right now for humanity. Virgo is the virgin who in her chaste state is potentially endowed with fruits of womanhood. Now I'd like you to look at the glyph. This is not the best Virgo glyph, but sometimes you can see the Virgo glyph that looks like a letter M, like mother, matter, material, and at the very bottom of the last part of the M is usually a closed off area. So it creates like this glyph shows a bit of a circle here, right? So yeah, we can consider that as that is the closed door of the cave, allowing for the germination of the Christ principle. Another way of looking at it, since it is a virgin, the whole mother here is the virgin, that this is the unsullied hymen that is still intact, that has yet not been broken. So there's so many ways we could interpret that, but these are just a couple. The sixth ray is that which can't be perfected in the form. Thus, it's constantly striving for perfection of the form. That is a very important quality associated with Virgo. Virgo wants constantly to perfect whatever it's involved in, whatever form, which is not just our physical etheric, our emotional, and our mental that creates the personality, but it could be the things that we work with on the material plane, on our everyday physical plane. So it is a very important driving energy for Virgo to perfect the form. We're going to go on to the next slide. And some of its strengths, because it's so into service and it's about the Christ principle, sometimes depending on the Virgoan person, it could be a little introverted, shy, and modest, meticulous, industrious because it works with matter, practical because it is ruled exoterically by Virgo, analytical and discriminating. Here you see Virgo at work. It's a hard worker. It toils. It works hard. Labor is hard. It's detailed oriented. Yes, it wants to see the small in order to understand the large. Fact finding, exacting, clean, it's humane, it seeks perfection. We're back to that same theme again, seeking constantly perfection, and can be studious because of the Mercury ruler. Its weakness, fussy worrier, overcritical, too harsh, and that unfortunately is a bad rap that Virgo tends to get. And why do you think it's so critical? Why do you think it's such a perfectionist? Why do you think all of this? It has to do with the fact that it's looking for perfection. And anything that isn't perfect is noticed and articulated in some fashion, right? The mind sees it, it's not perfect. And I have Venus in Virgo, and Venus is about everything being as beautiful as it can be. And I will notice lint on people's shoulders, you know, the clothes. I will notice hair is out of place. I will notice all these little things that are not perfect. And I just have one thing in Virgo, and that's Venus. Can you imagine then how people who have the moon or a stellium or the sun or the ascendant in Virgo, all of these things would apply. Depending on how evolved a person is, will depend on how critical they are. Because we all know criticism is not a good thing, right? They are worrywarts, fear of disease and poverty. Disease because it is constantly working with health-related, not constantly, tends to work with health-related areas. Whether it's medicine, massage, dental hygiene. A lot of doctors and dentists have strong Virgo in them. So therefore, this whole idea of disease is very, very much part of their psyche. Interesting, my daughter is a Virgo moon. She has Jupiter there, and you know Jupiter amplifies, makes everything more of, and she has a couple of other planets there. So she's got a stellium in Virgo. She's a dental hygienist by profession, and I used to give her any necklaces that would knot up, the chains would knot up. She would be able to pull them apart and get it to work. But now during COVID, she is so aware of the airborne and how we're maybe not following it 100%, maybe we're only following it 80. So she's very conscious and very critical of how we as a humanity are handling this airborne virus. When she goes to Costco, it's all she can do to tell people, you're not wearing your mask properly. You know, she holds herself back. So this is a very typical of a Virgo type. They can be very picky, maybe sloppy, maybe skeptical. Esoterically, however, Virgo is known as the hands of God at work. Virgo is here to produce form and to nurture the life within the form, to quietly serve and attend to the details of life and service. Now, esoterically, we know that until you are ready, the soul is not going to really infuse you. Until you are ready, that Christ principle is not going to be born in the cave of the heart. And that is why Virgos are so keen on perfecting the form. They don't even know why they are, many of them. They just know that this is what pushes them to seek perfection. And now that we understand why, we can maybe understand why Virgoans behave the way they do. And that is because things need to be perfect so that, so that the Christ principle can be born.
Eva,
Yes.
you have a comment, and I think it fits really well here. As a matter of fact, I can actually relate, having done the same thing myself. Nisa says, the Virgo mother spent a whole evening rectifying the checking account to find 1 cent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like you, which you know, I have Venus in Virgo. So yeah, we can be pretty picky, and we can
I
be
know.
very exacting.
Now,
Just
the
like
interesting thing is,
Nisa says here.
the interesting thing with Venus also on an exoteric level deals with our lovers, our partners, our romance. And they say that Venus and Virgo will notice all the little things that are not 100% with their partner. It might be hair growing out of the ears or hair coming down from the nose or any of these little things. Venus and Virgo will see all of that, you see. That is not necessarily a good thing, is it? But hey, it is what it is, right? So thank you for that. Yeah. Okay, some more things about Virgo. The house that Virgo rules for you is where you are to work and serve dutifully, where you are to be the hands of God at work, where you are to demonstrate skill in action. The skill in action is really a secondary phrase, where you are to devote time and energy. And it's an interesting word to use here, devote. Devote tends to speak to the 6th ray, and Virgo's personality, I think, is 6th ray. So you can see how studious it can be, how meticulous. Look at this over here, looking at the the detail here within, what is it, a dollar bill or whatever this person is studying. There's a certain neatness and organization associated with Virgo. And they do use their minds a lot because Mercury rules it. They analyze, they want to think something carefully in order to understand all of its parts. Yay, that's correct. Okay, so now Mercury is the ruler of 3 different signs, which we are going to discuss here. Mercury in Virgo is exoteric. Mercury in Aries is esoteric, while Mercury in Gemini is also exoteric, right? It rules the personality part. So Mercury in Virgo, the orientation is to perfection and to sacredness of the form, so the form can reflect the consciousness within. Thoughts, which is Virgo, are grounded in details, grounded because it's an earth sign, grounded in details of work and practical things. That's an important combination here. It's grounded and it's practical. Right? Mercury in Aries, remember, the exoteric ruler of Aries is Mars, and the esoteric ruler is Mercury. So the way in which it demonstrates should be spiraled up a little bit higher. And it is. It's the use energy of Mars, which is its exo, to bring new ideas into the world, which is the Mercury. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's all about the newness of things, the beginning and pioneering. Those are all words associated with Aries. So with Mercury there, it wants to bring new ideas, Mercury, out into the world. In Gemini, being exoteric, many ideas are not grounded. You see, here's the difference between Virgo and Gemini. Both of them are on the mutable cross. In Gemini, they are not grounded. Why? Can be not grounded. It doesn't mean that this is right across the board. Can be not grounded because it's an air sign. And they live in castles in the mind. Many times the ideas stay high. They don't get brought down to earth. They have a wealth of ideas and quickness of thought. This is the mercurial, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like Mercury is very, very quick, this is the quickness of thought, and we've seen depictions of Mercury with wings on its heels and wings on its helmet, because it moves through the air with speed. There's a quickness associated with Mercury. In Virgo, it's not that quick. In Virgo, it's more practical. It goes from one thing to the other. In Gemini, it tends to be quick. Okay, so here we go. Esoterically, Virgo is ruled by the moon. Now, generally speaking, the way we tend to teach this is that if the moon is an exoteric ruler, then we look at the moon the way it is and where it is, and we try to understand its characteristics and qualities. When the moon is an esoteric ruler or exalted or a hierarchical ruler, then we tend to say that it veils, it hides a planet that really should be behind it, right? And in Virgo, it usually veils Vulcan. It also can veil Neptune. So we have a choice here, and the choice is dependent on how we live our life. If this was, for example, to the Pope, Pope Francis, we would say it tends to veil Neptune because he is so mystical and devoted, right? But if it's the average person, and with Earth and Vulcan working with the form, it is the hammer of the gods working with the form in collaboration with Mercury to create a form that is an appropriate vessel for the Christ life, one that is completely reflective of the light of the soul. So it tends to fashion the personality. It hammers away at the personality so that its will, because Vulcan is first ray, so that the will of the personality can then reflect the will of the soul, can reflect the light of the soul. So for those of you who might have a strong, are a strong Virgo type, then you have to really think this out. Is it Vulcan or is it Neptune that it is veiling? Now, the moon, as we know, is also the ruler in Cancer. And Cancer is different. It is cardinal, which is action. It's more will associated with it. And it is water. So the moon here symbolizes and also veils in Cancer. But if it's just the exoteric, we tend to just look at the moon. And in Cancer, it's about emotions, which the moon generally rules. Automatic tendencies, traditional roots. The goal is to build a home where one can give and receive nurturing. And that is very much moon qualities that we're talking about, or moon characteristics that we've pretty well talked about here. But in Cancer, because Cancer is like the womb, Cancer is the home, so it's these tendencies are then within the home, and the nurturing part comes through. Okay.
Eva, before we move
Yes.
on, Karen asks, why do you mention the moon in Cancer as esoteric ruler in Virgo?
And we're just mentioning where the moon here rules. In Cancer, it's exo, and in Virgo, it's exo, I did say that, yeah, and in Virgo, it's eso. So we want to show you how the moon is looked at differently in different signs, and where it is that it is the ruler of, or I didn't say that very well. When it's the ruler in an esoteric position versus an exoteric position. And that's why we bring you, even with Mercury, we brought you to see Mercury in the three signs that it rules. One of them was esoteric, so therefore it was slightly different than the exoteric approach. Here, the moon too. One is in an esoteric position, the other one is in an exoteric position. I hope that helps. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, BL?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that it's all about the relationships that are formed in the various different ways. whether the relationship is one of aspects that are formed in your chart, or rulerships, like the moon here has two different rulerships, and it has a third because it's the hierarchical ruler of Aquarius. But the whole point is, any kind of relationship, any kind of method of relating ties everything together, from the little piecemeal into the whole. And so it's always good to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. So, focus change from Mercury to the moon. And why are we looking at this? Because one is the exoteric ruler, the other one is the esoteric ruler. So aspects, and one could easily have this in their chart, between moon and Mercury in your chart relate to responses. So are the aspects conjunct, like a conjunct, that would make you more aware, restless, and sensitive? Are they harmonious aspects, which could be more versatile, could be, sentient, very responsive to feelings, emotions, and because the moon tends to, be about our past and our past habits. It could be retentive, wanting to hold on to the old, wanting to hold on to that which is so familiar. Okay, and inharmoniously, whether you have a cross or a quincunx, it could be forgetful, inconstant, I don't know if that's the right word, or inconsistent. I'm not too sure what word we need here, and maybe even nervous. Mercury and the moon could, relate to, depending where it is and what sign it's in, if it's nervous or not. Like in Gemini, if you have this in Gemini or Sagittarius or Aquarius, it could be, lead to that. Okay.
All
so
right.
Now it's your turn now.
Yep, and I'm going to talk about Pisces. It is represented by the two fish. It rules the feet. It is a mutable water element. Its traditional rulers are Jupiter and Neptune, and esoterically it's ruled by Pluto. The house of Pisces is the 12th house. It also conveys rays 2 and 6. It's mutable water, and the approximate dates are February 19 to March 20. It is the 12th and the last sign of the zodiac, and it's associated with the end of winter. Exoterically, it can be seen as escapism. You see that in addictions, right? It's universal service. It's religion of any kind. Unfortunately, a lot of that is the race 6 aspect of my religion is the only religion, it's the right religion, and anybody else is completely off. We need more of that Ray 2 expression of that recognizes all religions as being ultimately part of the same. Exoterically, it's hidden resources. It's the unconsciousness. It's retreats and sanctuaries, and it has that spiritual component. Esoterically, karma, inner work, bondage, resurrection. The 12th house is the house of karma. One needs to resolve those 12th house issues before you can move on. The 12th house is where things are hidden, where the shadow is. It's about endings. You need to end your stuff so that you can move on. It's your cycle of pain, but you need to get through it to bring it out into the light and work through it so that you can be reborn and start again in Aries on a new plateau, a new vibration, a new spiral. Strength of Pisces, imagination. Where would we be without the imagination? Sensitivity, compassion, kindness, selflessness, sacrifice, healing, devotion, idealism, gentleness, charitable, creative, sympathetic, emotional. Any of the water signs are going to be right. Intuitive, introspective, musical, artistic, dreamy. Sensitivity to impression, inclusive, poetic, the power to serve, courageous, and patient. A lot of weaknesses. Escapism, idealism that borders on being fanatic, victim consciousness. It's all happening to me. I'm the victim here. Hypersensitivity, being easily overwhelmed, weak-willed, vague, indolent, impractical, dreaminess, sentimental, often feels misunderstood. Can go the other way, self-denial, emotionally inhibited, melancholy, and my favorite there, procrastination. I'll do it tomorrow. The esoteric Pisces. The goal of Pisces is to detach from the non-essentials and serve humanity with great compassion, tolerance, and understanding. Sometimes it's really hard to do that if you're too attached to the people. I mean, it's crushing to help some people, isn't it, sometimes, when you just feel their pain. So you have to have that little bit of detachment in there to be able to show that compassion, that tolerance, and that understanding without it crushing you. Pisces serves humanity selflessly and tirelessly and is gentle, tender, and kind. In the 12th house, the house of Pisces, the soul will take the personality out of the mainstream and into a more introspective phase. You know, this is kind of the hermit in us, hiding there in that 12th house. In this way, the person can go through a period of self-analysis to identify the habits and patterns which are going to continually sabotage you, usually the personality. The house symbolizes the completion of the human experience and the ascension to that higher level. Remember, that's the last house, and then we start over again, cross the ascendant into the first house. And just like going from Pisces to Aries or the 12th house to the first house, we want that to be a spiral up. We want to have learned something in the previous round as we get ready to go into the second round. Pisces rules the feet. The two heels tied together signify the limitation of movement. Karma, paying one's dues. Frequently, they can have foot problems. It can be indecisive. The adrenals are located in the arch of the foot. That fight or flight approach. That's what your feet are for. Run, right? Feet have constant contact with the earth. Dancers, artsy, connection to the world. Unconsciousness allows for that creativity. You notice with the Native Americans when they do their dance, they're barefoot. They need that connection to the earth, don't they? They feel that vibration, and it makes them sensitive to others. Feet support the entire weight of the body, just like Pisces supports the entire weight of all the other signs that came before it. So you can quite often feel wholly responsible for the well-being of all of those that you love, carrying all that weight. I die daily as the tendency to suffer, overwhelmed because of the sensitivity. Many problems with boundaries and reaching out to the pain of others. The house where Pisces rules is where you're going to be challenged to discern between illumination and illusion. What you need to transcend. Where you need to be empowered and less of a victim. We see here again, like we saw with Virgo, the healing hands, the beautiful dancer. Dreams are hopes. The exoteric ruler, Jupiter and Neptune, together. And of course, this is Jupiter was the old one before they found the outer planets, and then Neptune was assigned. Jupiter, ray 2, just like one of the rays of Pisces. He was the king of the gods. He has a 12-year orbit around the sun. He enhances and amplifies everything, bigger than life. He's joyful, hopeful, and optimistic, good-natured, friendly, beneficent, expansive. I could tell you about expansive. I have Jupiter in the first house. Do I have a weight problem? Yes. He applies love wisely and wisdom lovingly. Two different things there. Both of them apply. He sees through rose-colored glasses and can be very group conscious because he is overly expansive, right? The other exoteric ruler is Neptune. We see Neptune in Cancer. It dissolves boundaries of the individual family to the larger family and eventually the family of man. And that, of course, is, the esoteric ruler of Cancer there. Neptune in Leo, esoterically, the heart of the sun, right? A way into the heart through Neptune. Neptune in Pisces, the exoteric ruler. It's more concrete, in your face because it's the exoteric ruler. You move without knowing any boundaries here. Neptune can blur everything, including the boundaries. Neptune brings compassion, a sense of wanting to help and to salvage. More often than not, since Pisces is that mutable water sign, one is immersed in water, and it gives a tendency to suffer and to personalize it all. You feel not only your own pain, but the pain of the world, pain that tends to drown. And then what happens? Pain leads to escapism through the different kinds of abuse, drugs, alcohol, fantasies. The way for Pisces to express and work is in an artistic way, drama, art, something like that. Neptune in Virgo. Yes, Neptune can veil the moon in Virgo. And Eva talked about that. Didn't you mention that, Eva?
Yes, I did. I talked about Neptune as being veiled by the moon, but I'm not sure I actually went into what it would look like, you know, with both Vulcan and with Neptune, what it would look like in Virgo. If that's something you want to address or not.
Well, to me, it's, walking a mile in your shoes. Neptune is more associated with Pisces, but there is that relationship of it in Virgo. So it would give you a greater understanding if the moon is veiling Neptune. I think it would give you a greater understanding of the whole axis.
Yeah, and I think it would make the Virgo very devotional here, because Virgo tends to be very practical, down to earth, and with Neptune there, it would this is more the stringent Virgo, the one that is humble and is so devoted to God and deity. Like I would think in the priesthood, in the nunnery, you would see that kind of relationship with Virgo.
And I venture to say every one of us went through the priesthood or the nunnery at one time in our mystic experience. I think it's just part of the path going through that. Okay. The esoteric ruler of Pisces is Pluto. And Pluto in the water signs is connected to the solar plexus. So that's not going to be difficult. But what does Pluto do? Pluto wants to dig deep and bring things to the surface that need to be identified, right? That's the purpose of it. That ray one, that will, the will to deal with the junk that's being dredged up. Pluto is also the ruler of Scorpio. That's fixed water. And if any of you know any Scorpios, you know exactly where this phrase came from. Still waters run deep. One is not in touch with their emotions. Emotions can be confused and intense and not necessarily expressed. Pluto can and does bring about radical transformation. But I have to say, it's probably something the soul planned for. There's a method to the madness in astrology. There's a reason that these are the rulers, exoterically and esoterically. There's a specific purpose that the signs and the planets perform in unison as we look at our chart, as things in our chart continue to move. And of course, the harder ones to deal with are the ones that bring us our greatest soul lessons. It represents large monopolies and pressure groups, mega power and control and manipulation. How much of that are we seeing now with all these big, huge groups forcing misinformation down our throats? Having these monopolies that govern the healthcare system, the pharmaceutical system, the power, the sustainable power versus the fossil fuel crap that we're never going to get rid of. We see a lot of that, forcing it down our throats. And death and radical transformation is definitely needed in a number of areas around the world. And we're seeing that in events playing out right now. Just for example, we could look at the Arab nations as being scorpionic. We can look at the Israelis as being Aries in nature. It's a different approach to life. The Israelis, they're out in the open and they're clear where they stand, maybe a little in your face, but it's clear. The Arabs move more in the dark, by surprise, the suicide attacks, right? Those, of course, are stereotypes. We can apply them to anybody. We see a lot of different nations exhibiting both of these things, and neither one is necessarily a good thing. One is not more right than the next. The only time Pluto appears as an esoteric ruler is in Pisces. It works in a very volcanic way. It moves from above and below, it percolates for a long time, and then it just explodes. The purpose is to bring about that death of the old way and transformation into something new. Nothing is ever lost. It just needs to be repurposed into something that is more productive. Pisces is a place of culmination, and that's why we feel so much there. There's no boundaries. Everything bleeds into it. The soul will use Pluto to ensure the snares of the past are destroyed and old chapters are closed. I would like to see a show of hands right now. Who here feels that they were impacted personally by that Pluto-Saturn conjunction that we had at the beginning of this year? Globally, the whole world felt it. But there you go. Anybody have anything at 22 anything in their chart? Because 22 anything had some kind of an aspect. It was at 22 Capricorn. But if you have anything in your natal chart at 22 degrees, it made some aspect to that that conjunction that we had that was just quite powerful, both personally and individually. Okay, thank you. You can put your hands down now. I appreciate you putting them up. Okay, so the soul will use Pluto to ensure that the snares of the past are destroyed and that old chapters are closed. And that's exactly what it's doing right now. Final detachments are made. All obstacles to soul fusion can be purged. I die daily. Pisces in relationship to Pluto. Now, the change here from Neptune to Pluto, from the exoteric ruler to the esoteric ruler, again, like Eva said with Virgo, you want to look at the aspects between Neptune and Pluto in your chart. How are they going to relate to death and resurrection? If they're conjunct, you could be annihilating, eradicating, pulverizing. People might feel that kind of pressure from you if they're conjunct in your chart. Harmonious aspects, sextiles, trines, and quintiles, could be redemptive in some way, regenerative, or transcendent. If they're inharmonious, the crosses, the quincunx, the squares or quincunx, aspects could be crumbling or decaying or disintegrating. in some way. And the focus from exoteric Jupiter ruler to Pluto. If they're conjunct, it could be insightful, invincible, or discerning. Harmonious could be productive, resourceful, uplifting. Inharmonious aspects could be driving, inquisitorial, or overly ambitious. Okay, I still see a hand up. Joe, did you have a question, or were you, was your hand still up from feeling the Saturn? Okay, all right. All hands are down now. Okay, well then let's move on. Back to you, Eva.
Okay, so now you have a good sense of the energies of each of these two signs. There's a lot more that we will be saying as we go along, but let's just start with some of the relating qualities of the two. So both Virgo and Pisces are associated with the hidden Christ. One is in the cave and one is the Savior, just like the Christ is known to have been. So it's the compassionate heart that finds its way to be released through these two signs. So again, we're back to our triangles, our Ray 6 and our Ray 2 triangles. It's very interesting that they're on the mutable cross, and the mutable cross basically has these two sets of, of energies. We have here the Virgo and the Pisces, so they're both 2 and 6. We have Sagittarius, who is 6, and Gemini, which is Ray 2. So we see that both those rays are part of this mutable cross, strongly actually. Now, I don't want to read all of this with you, but I do want to point out the most important things here. As we go to the Virgo side, there is words like mental, analyst, reasoner, thinker, rationalistic, real, critical, analysis, mental, critical. You get the idea, right? It's a mental approach. In Pisces, it is more intuitive, believer, mystic, fanatic, dreamer, emotional, irrational, dissolving, sometimes confused, escape, laziness, whereas this one is strong work orientation. So you see the major difference in these two energies, right? One is of the mind and the other one is not. One is more of the emotions and the sentiency because it's water. Okay. That's all I'm going to say about that. So we move on.
Okay. Joe, you've got your hand up again. Did you have a question, Joe?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, since we're going to move on, so before we actually talk a little bit more here, I hope that you've noticed that both these signs have a soft side to them, correct? They both are soft. They're both about the heart, they're both soft. And yet, the esoteric ruler for each of them is first ray. If you look at Vulcan as being beneath or hidden by the moon, it's first ray. And if you look at Pluto for Pisces, it's first ray. I don't know about you guys, but I find that fascinating that you have the soft, 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 exoteric energy to both, and yet underneath it, they have that first ray of will and power associated with them. In Pisces, how important that is, because I die daily. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for some Pisceans when there are no boundaries, where they feel everybody else's pain, where they feel like they're dying all the time, and yet they can summon up that will. that strong Pluto will to get them up and out of this energy that they find themselves in. Same thing with Virgo. Virgo can summon up that Vulcanian energy and push through to get, to use that will that is so necessary. The will that Vulcan's hammer really is trying to burnish into the personality. We are moving out of the Piscean age, right? It was inaugurated at the time of the Christ or Jesus when he was born. It was inaugurated then. So it's already over 2,000 years, and they're saying around 21,170, something like that, or 21,117. Can't quite remember which it is. I think I wrote it down somewhere here at one time. Anyway, that is when we will be officially moving into 2117. I found it. When we officially, based on astronomy, will be moving into the Aquarian age. So we have been living a Piscean energy for over 2,000 years. And what has that energy done? It has stimulated religion. It has brought in religion, and has brought in a lot of wars associated with religion. This is where we see Mars, which rules the solar plexus, the emotions, and we see the Pisces that is emotional, that is water. So we see the Mars acting up, we see the Pluto coming in, and there's been a tremendous amount of fanaticism, aggressiveness, killings throughout these 2,000 years, correct? The world wars, all of this is so Piscean, and hopefully we move out of the emotions of Pisces and we'll move into the Aquarian age, which is more mental, with a mental approach. Do you remember the slide that BL had up there? That Pluto is supposed to bring death and transformation before, that's basically what it does. Well, aren't we kind of living that right now with Pluto and crystallized Capricorn, making us deal with all our shadows, so that when the new age, which is over 100 years from now, comes, some of that will have been dealt with. It will have come up from the ashes or from the underground and be able to be seen in the light of day, dealt with, and then we can move forward. So we are actually living that right now. And if there's any comments or questions on that, I'll be happy to address that. In the meantime, I will move on. Exoterically, Virgo and Pisces. Virgo is labor. It's like the ninth month if you're going the other direction. It's giving birth, and that's hard work. And besides that, Virgos work hard. They're hard workers. Pisces is love, very romantic. The lack of willingness to serve can signify a lack of sympathy and understanding. And both these signs want to serve. Underneath everything, it's about service. But again, it has to do with where someone is at in their point of evolution. We can learn to care for people, which I think a lot of first care workers, people that are out there trying to help. We hear on the news, I don't know if you listen to it the way I do, all the good things that are happening. It's at the very end of all these 1-hour shows. They try to point out all the kindness, the goodness that we are seeing, that people are carrying out right now. Virgo builds foundations for Piscean air castles because of the illusion of Neptune. Things are not seen clearly necessarily with Pisces. It's always this mystical, wonderful thing, and they don't necessarily look at it from a practical perspective. Now, I'm generalizing, I realize that. So for all of you who might have energies in these signs, don't take anything I say personally. These are all stereotypical ways of looking at things. Virgo stands for hygiene, right? The care of the form. And Pisces, irrationality can lead to undermined health because it doesn't really think things out. One can be seen as overly fastidious Virgo, while the other hides behind self-defeating behaviors, such as escapism, such as too much food, too much drink, too much drugs, too much of anything, because of the Jupiter rulership. Virgo works objectively, while Pisces is subjective and retreats from the grossness of the outer world. There's a real difference here. One is objective, one is subjective. One is about analysis, the other is about idealism. Now remember, with idealism, sixth ray, is the ideal is usually outside of self. We're going to see that in a minute. So the ideal is out there, you know, and I think if you go to, I'm not sure if it's the next slide or not, we will see that one of them has to do with God out there and the other one is God in the heart. One is transcendent, the other one is immanent. We'll see that in another slide. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. Exoterically, Pisces is water, highly emotional and sensitive. It's the watery nature ruled by Neptune, the god of the waters. Virgo's lower mind can produce criticism, as has been discussed, separativeness, which is a tendency for all minds to do. The mental vehicle is found on the mental plane, and the mental plane is ruled by Ray 5. Ray 5 separates. It separates, it takes things apart in order to understand the whole. So all minds want to be separative, and it can sabotage, truly, the hypersensitive Piscean. Can you imagine coming in with criticism to a Piscean who's highly sensitive, how they would personalize that? You know, I'm thinking of children in school, you know, if the teacher comes down really hard on them, you know. The result can be a Piscean dissolution of relationships, yes. Picking a Piscean person to pieces can reduce the person to ill health, neurosis, antisocial behavior. The insecurity of the undeveloped Virgoan can create a multitude of small worries, which can lead to anxiety. And it is the overly fastidious Virgo that is, what are those initials? ACDC? No.
OCD.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, me with these initials. Oh my gosh. Yes, OCD. And they stand for
obsessive compulsive disorder.
Exactly. And it's because they want everything to be a certain way. It's got to be clean. If it's not clean enough, if it's not in that order, it can lead to that on a very negative, in a negative way. Okay. So one is discriminating. The other one can be a fanatic and can really push for what they believe in. Because remember, this is belief, and belief is not based on thought. Belief is based on emotions, which most religions are. They're an emotional approach to deity. So resolution. Virgo is service, Pisces is salvation. Redemption is gained by both good works and faith. The Virgoan seeks a place where his training can be used, while the Piscean devotes himself to big issues. So one has to do with a practical approach, the other one has to do with devotion. Virgo is the mother, Pisces is the savior. So we have savior here now twice, one salvation and one savior. Virgo represents the harvest and the cultivating food. Yeah, you know, the Virgoan time is usually early fall, where we harvest all our food, and the food is used for nutrition, for health, for medicine. Pisces represents the body sacrificed for the soul, denoting the final release of spirit rising out from the outworn body. Okay, so that's what I was saying before. God immanent, God within. and God transcendent. God is outside of self. Any ideal is usually held high, and that is held really, really high, but God is out there. The ideal is out there, and therefore there is devotion to that which is out there. And the form, and that's what Virgo's biggest problem is, the form, the ideal, the perfection is never really in the form. The ideal is never in the form. And that's why they work so hard to try to perfect the form, because on one level, they understand that the form is so important that it be in perfect state for the soul to be born within, or to be reflected within the form. The more the form is perfected, and by that we mean physically, emotionally, and mental, the more soul infusion there will be. It's like taking a tea bag into a hot cup of water. The longer it sits in there, it becomes more steeped. Well, you cannot undo this. You know, the more soul is infused, it will only infuse once the vessel is ready, and once the vessel is pure for that energy to start infusing into the matters, into the substance of which we are made up of. Okay. Exoteric for ordinary humanity, virgin matter attracts the soul, and the Divine Mother becomes more important than the sun. The life of the soul is hidden. That's for ordinary humanity. For disciples and initiates, the form reveals and releases the indwelling soul. This is what we talked about, that infusion. The Savior of the world appears and nurtures the hidden souls in Virgo. So the more we purify, the more we can, infuse the soul. Nurturing versus imagining. Virgo has expressions of nurturing and healing, known for its down-to-earth practicality and meticulous detail orientation. In this respect, Virgin Mother brings to birth what Pisces conceives in its imagination, it's in its visions, and it's in its dreams. Let me know when we're switching off, please.
Couple more slides.
Okay, both are mutable or on the common cross, known as the cross of the Christ. They have the identical rays, ray 2, love, wisdom, ray 6, devotion, idealism. Christ was born in the Virgin, Virgo, and became the world savior, Pisces. Virgo indicates the birth of the Christ, and Pisces, the absolute fulfillment of the Christ principle. So in many ways, one starts it, the other one finishes it. Virgo represents the incarnation of the second aspect within the third aspect, matter. Do we understand that? The second aspect is the love of God, and so you have the incarnation of the soul, which is love, within the third aspect, which is the form, which is matter. So the second into the third. Pisces, the absolute redemption of the third aspect by the second aspect. So the third aspect here being the form, and totally redeemed here by the second aspect, the love wisdom of deity. How do they cooperate? As Christ, or the soul as the healer, both are healing signs. Both are frequently associated with the medical professions because of the 6th house and the 12th house. 6th house is service. The 6th house is your health. It has to do with your intestines, your well-being. The 12th house has to do with hospitals. Hospitals, institutions. If you need surgery, you go to the hospital. So that's the 12th house. Virgo, the preeminent sign of health and healing, is opposite the flow of the endocrine system of Pisces. Did we know that? As Christ is the true psychic, psychism is found pronouncedly developed as well as mediumship. Well, many times we know that mediumship is in water signs, and Pisces par excellence is the most of all of these as far as being a mediumship, as far as being psychic. It's mediumship, according to the Tibetan, is more unconscious in Pisces and more mental or conscious in Virgo. It comes very naturally to a lot of Pisceans. My husband is a Pisces, and he is such a good judge of character, and he intuitively gets things and knows things well ahead. I can just see it in him all the time. Psychism indicates an extension of the senses, and both are associated with sensitivity to the not self, which is the higher self, the soul. The planet of psychism is Neptune, generalized ruler of Pisces, and the veiled ruler, esoterically, of Virgo by the moon. And as I said, it could be Neptune, could be Vulcan. Okay, Virgo and Pisces with respect to cooperation. Both are signs of fulfillment. The hierarchical ruler of Virgo is Jupiter, and the orthodox ruler of Pisces is Jupiter. So there's a real strong connection here. They are, in certain sense, consummating signs. Virgo consummating the first half of the zodiac, and Pisces the second half of the zodiac. Pisces is also a sign much related to release. That's when the two fishes that are bound together, then that string, the rope, whatever it is that holds them together is let go, and they are free. They are free to go each in their own direction, one being the personality, the other one being the soul. Early Pisces can be as materialistic as Virgo itself. And these two signs are related to mother or matter. The evolutionary mantra of each bringing a strong association to matter. This is the exoteric keynote for each sign. For Virgo, let matter reign. And for Pisces, go forth into matter. And that is when it is ready to start all over again in Aries. Going forth, head first, in Aries. Aries is associated with the head, into matter. Go forth into matter. Both signs share an affinity with bondage, right? We talked about the two fishes are bound together. Pisces is preeminent, a sign of bondage, of handicap, of the subservience of spirit to matter, or of soul to the form life. Virgo, which rules the dense material element, and especially that which is brought over from the first solar system, also carries a theme of bondage. Do I need to go into further details about the first solar system? The first solar system, I'm just going to mention very, very quickly for those who are not familiar. We are in the second solar system. The first solar system perfected the third aspect, which is the intelligence of matter, which has automatically come to us, so we build on that. This solar system is meant to develop love. This is why it is the second one. The next one, after this one is completed, is meant to develop will, so the will of God. This one is the love of God. The first one was the intelligence of God. Both signs are related to the heart center. In Virgo, the birth of the heart occurs. In Pisces, salvation through the heart occurs. And this is mediated through both these planets, Jupiter and Neptune. Both are associated with the heart. Both are second ray in their highest form. They are second ray, which is love, and associated with the heart. They are equally associated with the solar plexus, expressing the sixth ray, because they rule these sixth ray signs. And Neptune is the higher correspondence or the higher level of the solar plexus, the lower one being Mars and the higher expression being Neptune. Jupiter, on the other hand, radiates down and still can be associated with the solar plexus as well. Okay.
All right. Now, Eva just said it, but I think it bears repeating. They both are related to the heart center, and the birth of the heart in Virgo and the salvation achieved through the heart here in Pisces. Very important aspects of these two signs and how they work together as an axis once we quit trying to make them compete with each other. And what is that doing? Working together. That's working through the heart, isn't it? Okay, some more points of cooperation. They're both signs of synthesis. The glyph of Virgo indicates a material synthesis, the M, the 3 parts to it. Pisces draws all things into itself, taking from all signs as the last sign. So a great and fluid intuitive synthesis is created that Eva was just talking about. But the synthesis that's created in both of these signs is actually a material synthesis. Virgo and Pisces both indicate subjugation to substance, the dominance of the material aspect, either through food or drugs, strictly materialistic processes. They can be seen as powerful in relation to the Atlantean civilization, which was a matriarchy. It was also about developing the astral and the love aspect that can be found there. That astral focus was the norm for Atlantis, for the
Can I
Atlantean.
add something to that, please?
Sure.
It was during Atlantis that it was the feminine. The feminine is what created for us all these associations with goddesses, and it is only now that we moved into a patriarchal society, and it is only now that we are giving voice to more feminine understanding. That's it.
They have so much in common, and that's why we have so many slides on their points of cooperation. And actually, we had to pare this down. If you go look at, the comparisons that Michael Robbins has done, that we've got on Makara, is part of his Tapestry of the Gods series. He has pages and pages and pages of the comparisons of these two signs, which is where we got a lot of this information. So Virgo represents that mental polarization, and Pisces an emotional intuitional polarization. Again, we find that service and saviorship in common, that as we've seen before. Pisces, they're great helpers. Virgo represents that attentive service to practical matters. They both have that strong helping orientation that's characteristic of the helping professions and the health professions. There's a quality of humility or self-effacement found in both of these signs. And they characterize the life of the aspirant or disciple. There are many ego-defeating disciplines which must be undertaken upon these paths. And these are two signs that help us do that, help us defeat the ego. In summary, Virgo represents both the form and the spirit. It's where the Christ child is nurtured within. And Pisces is duality, fluidity endowed with instinctual consciousness. It's mediumistic. The intuition at first is dormant. It becomes the death of the personality and the release of the soul from that captivity. It becomes Christ, the world Savior. Virgo is the birth of the soul in the cave of the heart, and Pisces is the expression of soul consciousness. The axis is one of nurturing the soul within the heart and bringing it into that conscious manifestation. We have to bring it to the physical. We have to consciously know, consciously manifest it. Esoteric astrology tells us that in Virgo, the man who was fluid in Pisces begins to focus more intently and to reason and think. The intellect is awakening, and instinct, after passing through the emotional stage, is being transmuted into intellect. The man lives in and experiences in all the signs, but the influences of the mutable cross have more effect on him until he becomes aware of the dualities of the fixed cross. Finally, the energies of the cardinal cross emerge, and the revelation of the Christ consciousness in Virgo is carried forward by the illumined disciple. The great achievement is finished in Pisces and release of the soul from captivity as the final death is undergone. So here we have, as we've been doing with all of our axes, comparing the rays, the rulers, the key phrases, and the lights for Virgo. Mutable earth versus mutable water. Ruler of Virgo is Mercury. The exoteric ruler of Pisces is Jupiter and Neptune, bringing in both ray 2 and 6. The ruler of the esoteric ruler of Virgo is the moon. So that's 2 ray 4s there with Virgo, giving you that full 2, 4, 6 line. Whereas in Pisces, as Eva pointed out earlier, you get that ray 1. And you also get the ray 1 over there with the esoteric ruler as the moon veils Vulcan, and more of 6 as it veils Neptune. So the key phrases, the esoteric key phrases for Virgo: I am the mother and the child. I, God, I, matter, am. And the Pisces key phrase, I'm going to cry. I'm just such a sap, all that cancer I have in me. I leave the Father's house, and turning back, I save. So the lights, remember that we're looking at these. We want you to use these to look at the axis in connection with the full moons, because that's exactly what it is, what the full moon is. The moon and the earth are in one sign, and the sun is on the opposite side. Okay, so Virgo, the blended dual light. 2 lights are seen, bright and strong. The light of form. One faint and dim, the light of God. The light is distinguished by a waxing of the one and the waning of the other, and it differs from the light in Gemini. Pisces is the light of the world. This is the light, revealing the light of life itself. It ends forever the darkness of matter. Okay, I hope you can see these good enough. For our Virgo-Pisces charts, hold on just 1 second. We got a question here. Yvonne says, number one, this should be required for teachers. Well, that would be good. And then she also says, are most popes Piscean? I would say there is a degree of Pisces in them somehow. Definitely race 6 in there. But to what extent and in which ways, I don't know. But that's a really good question, because look at the 2 charts that we're going to be looking at today. One of Pope Francis and one of the Dalai Lama. Okay, now Suzanne says, as always, a blend of 2 companion souls creates an enlightening synthesis in maybe presentation, making clear many aspects individually, leaving the participant with such a holistic view of all. Thanks, you dynamic duo. Hey, that's us, Eva. We're the dynamic duo. We're glad that you're getting something from this. It's so important that you do realize exactly that. The individual components, but how they make up the whole. Okay, so here we go with, oh, we've got a hand up. Go ahead, Yvonne, you're self-muted. You have to unmute yourself, Yvonne. There you go.
Okay, there I go. My thing about the teachers, when Eva was given all these characteristics, the lower ones, I guess, of Virgo and Pisces, and whatever you were doing, it was how they affected children. You had a couple slides there, Eva, and all the terrible things that if you do this to young children, what it causes. And I thought that, when you were going through those slides at this requirement, they studied some astrology and their signs and their rulers, and if they had some idea what their personalities did to children, it might change what they are doing to the kids. It's the 2 slides that you did there, Eva, really had a big an impression on me. So that's what that was about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, one has to be sufficiently interested in this. My daughter, bless her, who's very spiritual, if I bring up anything that has to do with astrology and try to relate it to her children, she rolls her eyes, So it's not for everybody. That's the whole thing. One has to be sufficiently interested in wanting to know this and for it to land on people's consciousness.
That's true. You'd have to disguise it.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point there, Yvonne. It's like the trauma that a lot of little Catholic kids went through with the strict disciplinarian, or the strictness that was going on even during my era from regular school teachers, and the spare the rod, spoil the child attitude. And how many of you can raise your hand and say you were spanked as a kid? And then the total way it went the other way. And now kids aren't even given grades. They're everybody's a winner no matter how bad they do. And so there's a happy medium. The point though is that each person's energy system is different. And so the way you approach one child will be completely different than the way that you approach another. The way that you discipline one child will work on that child, but it won't work on another who is more sensitive. And it can be traumatizing in a way, just like we saw with the overly critical Virgoan. Can really trash a delicate little Pisces.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, okay, we got a couple of more before I get into the astrology of these charts here.
Questions?
Yeah, Joe says, quite a review for me with my nodal axis, South Node in Virgo, North Node in Pisces. Virgo is the ascendant. Yeah, so this is going to be a strong axis there, both with your nodes as well as on the angles there. Um, Jan says, this axis seems like one of the more harmonious ones. It's kind of a relief point. Well, they all have that point of equilibrium where they work well together. Once you've finished the combat that goes on, it is not a tug of war between them. It is finding the delicate balance. What is it, the Libra thing, the um, the narrow razor's edge path between the two, or you guys know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And Suzanne says, hopefully one day for teachers of young children, and that she was one, it will be required to have each child's chart available. That would be really good. You don't hear about it because a lot of them want to have that appearance of being professional and scientific in their approach, but you'd be surprised how many psychologists use astrology, whether it's public or private. They use it in their practice because this is true. If you approach people based on their astrology, you understand not only what's driving them, but what you can do to help them. So, Delara says, Frank Clifford, an astrologer, says you can find the shadow qualities of any sign in its opposite sign. For example, I have Pisces dominant in my family who are very critical. I can see the shadow qualities of Virgo in them, although they have no planets in Virgo. What do you think about this? Yes, of course. It's an axis. It's no either or. It's part of the same line, and there is a lot of that going on, either for good or for bad. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think, no, you've covered that well. There was another point I wanted to make here, going back to what you said about the full moon. And I belong to a astrology hub, which is an organization that has different speakers and different approaches to astrology. Unfortunately, it's not esoteric, but it's still, it fills in all the everyday kind of stuff that I need. The point I'm trying to get to here is that we just had the full moon of Leo. They call it the full moon of Aquarius. So they look at Aquarius because the sun is actually in Leo, not the moon. The moon is in its opposite axis. It's in Aquarius. So they deal with both whenever they do a full moon forecast. And it took me a long time to get that into my head and to be clear as to why they're focusing so much on the opposite sign. I'm okay with it now. It's taken me a while because this is not something that we normally do in our esoteric community. When we refer to the full moon of Leo, we talk about Leo, but they don't. They talk about Aquarius with only a little bit of mention about Leo. So this axis is so vital and important to understand because it's used in so many different ways. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, it's true. We concentrate on the solar fire meditation during the full moon, which is why we do the Leo serious aspect of it. But it is a reflection of that on the moon and the earth. And I would also like to add to what I just said to Delara. Many members of your family might have qualities of Pisces in them, but you also have to keep in mind that the sun itself is an axis. It's the sun and the earth. So if they have a sun in Pisces, they're going to have an earth in Virgo or vice versa. We also have the moon nodes in there that creates the axis. We have the ascendant descendant axis. We have the midheaven nadir axis. And then there can be planets that are in fact opposite each other. So there's so many different ways to bring in the full axis there. And we all have all of the signs in our chart, and at any given point, we might have something transiting through them. So it is an axis. It is part of the same line, and the energies do bleed over in there. So that's a good
And to
point.
take it even further, which we will be talking about in our next webinar, the Tibetan has asked us to look at the entire cross, not just the axes. So we have to look at all the arms of a particular cross if we're looking for, let's say, the sun, or if we're looking at the ascendant. It's the entire cross that he suggests that we consider, and we'll brief you on that next time. So yeah, axes are important. So is the cross. So are the crosses.
And then Leslie says, many of us have seen that. This is in relation to the using charts for children. In some Montessori and Waldorf Steiner schools, the teachers do use the children's natal diagrams to help understand and serve them. So that's really good. Those are two great school systems, the Montessori and the Waldorf schools. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, Leslie. Okay, I don't see any more comments or questions, so let me get into the astrology of these two charts, at least a little bit of it. And that's the last thing we want to do. Well, I've got a couple of quotes from them. But, I really liked that we did a couple of personal charts. Eva did hers and I did mine. And then we brought in the presidents last time, who were great poster children for Leo and Aquarius. And now I think these are just a perfect end to our, the Virgo-Pisces with the two of these. It shows here two world religious leaders and the compassion, the purpose, and the energy that they have. They both have Cancer on the ascendant, and they both have Neptune in Virgo in their third house, and they both have Saturn in Pisces in the ninth house. So that's that, oops, Pope Francis has it in his second house.
Yeah,
Okay.
and in his eighth house, but it doesn't matter. It's the
Right.
energy.
It's the point. It's
Yeah.
the energy.
Yeah.
They were actually born within 18 months of each other. So there is a lot of information that they share within their charts because of that. The Cancer ascendant is ruled by Neptune and Virgo, and that gives them both that exceptional compassion that they're both known for. And this was personal for each of them based on the time of their birth, right? That's each day they had the opportunity to have any sign on the ascendant, and they both felt that they needed that Cancer ascendant. That is the specific soul purpose that they wanted to emphasize this lifetime. So Saturn in Pisces can seem like a difficult position from an exoteric perspective. The common sense practical Saturn has nothing in common with that sensitive, watery Pisces, does it? It can seem like some kind of religious restriction. And I would say for the exiled Dalai Lama, that was certainly the case for him. But he got over that, didn't he? And this is true of any disciple or initiate. It gives them a spiritual opportunity. And for both of them, it's it's in the ninth and the eighth house and the ninth house. Yeah. I guess that looks like the 10th house cusp to me, but it isn't. Okay. Anyway, it gives them, for disciples and initiates, it gives them that spiritual opportunity. And look at what the Dalai Lama did with that. He is still a very prominent religious leader, even though he can't do that in his home. He does it in the world instead, doesn't he? Saturn in Pisces can also be an opportunity to work for the benefit of the people, especially the poor and the underprivileged. And both of them do that. For the Dalai Lama, Pisces is on his midheaven, right there. That's his career, to be that world savior. And with the exoteric ruler of Pisces, Neptune is opposite it, right there. So he's got that in emphasizing that axis for him, right there on his fourth house cusp and his midheaven, the angle there, the Pisces exoteric ruler and the Cancer esoteric ruler. So that's very important for him right here. That's a favorable sextile relationship between Cancer here, Cancer and Virgo, and then part of the same axis for here, right? So the rulerships are working together here within the axes of his chart, this one and this one. And actually his sun is right here conjunct his ascendant. So that sun-earth axis is also there as part of this sextile. It's actually closer, the personality is, as the esoteric ruler of Cancer here. All right, and then for Pope Francis, his moon is in Aquarius over here, and it's in conjunct his ascendant. See, his ascendant is at 10, and this is in conjunct. And exoterically, there's some incongruities or adjustment that he has to work out to elevate the moon to the higher expression of compassion and service for him, right? His sun is in Sagittarius, and that's the path, showing him the way to open up that Saturn, Pisces, opposing Neptune in Virgo as the esoteric ruler of his ascendant. So, and then if you look at their parts of fortune, they're both in Taurus, and that part of fortune is the point of harmony that they can reach between overcoming the past patterns of the moon and elevating the personality towards the soul purpose. And for both of them, it's in Taurus, which is enlightenment. And we see that in their global ministries, don't we? So both of these, even though it's not on their ascendant or on their sun, they both have this strong Pisces Virgo action going on with them in their chart. And we see that, trying to go to the next slide doesn't work when you're using a different computer. Okay, we see that in the words of both of them, as the Dalai Lama says. The planet does not need more successful people. It desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds. And the Pope: rivers do not drink their own water. The trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine to itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you. So I think that both of those epitomize this very strong Virgo-Pisces axis, and the Cancer as well.
Mhm. You know, I just want to add a couple of things here. I think Suzanne, brought out the Mars and Libra. Now, I got distracted here. The phone rang, so I don't know what you said about that. But it's interesting that, Mars is the warrior. Mars is the warrior. And isn't that what part of their mission has been, to help with relationships throughout the world? They have they have campaigned for proper right human relations. And with Mars, they are the warriors. They're the ones that are pushing for this. So I think that's in itself interesting. The other thing that I want to point out is what you've already talked about, BL, and that is Saturn in Pisces. Generally speaking, for most of humanity, when we see Saturn in Pisces, or Saturn having a relationship with Neptune, we tend to think that it's a difficult position. One is so mystical and illusory, and the other one is so concrete. So like BL said, they don't go together. And many times this indicates a door into the other realms. Sometimes it sometimes is a door where people can hear voices, or people can hear what's the word I'm looking for? It's another dimension. It opens up a doorway into another dimension. And maybe both of these highly spiritual people have that door open, so that they can receive much more from the heavenly realms than, let's say, the average person can. So instead of looking at it as a negative, I think it's very positive for them. And it's also karma. It's their karma to bring religion, to bring spirituality to people. This is another way of looking at Saturn. It's karma, and this is their duty to do that. So in relationships with Mars there, and in spirituality with Saturn there. I think that's it.
Okay. Suzanne says, thanks for the wonderful quotes from these peaceful warriors. I like that term, peaceful warriors. That, to me, represents Mars in Libra. The mediators there, the peaceful warrior. But the point I wanted to say was, once a week I post something to Facebook that's uplifting, and promotes kindness and unity and stuff like that. And I was getting everything ready today for this webinar, and I thought, what better Saturday uplifting message do I want to give my family than these two quotes? So I copied them out of the slides and pasted them into Facebook, and for all my friends and family to see. I have, of course, the traditional family dynamics. I have about half of my family will love them, and the other half will tell me that I'm, Pollyanna and naive, and let the world walk all over me. So I have both the good sides and the bad sides, but that's okay. My goal is to flood Facebook with beautiful thoughts, and both of those quotes from the Pope and the Dalai Lama were beautiful thoughts that I shared today on Facebook. Okay, Trudy, go ahead. Your hand is up. You're self-muted. There you go.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's been very interesting for me, because I have Virgo. Virgo is my ascendant, so it has been enlightening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's like Yvonne. Yvonne has, I think, Virgo ascendant too.
Yes, she does. We all have it somewhere in the chart. I have it on my ICMC. So we all have every single sign in our chart. Some are more represented than others, but they're all there. They're all a part of our makeup. So, okay, well, we have one more webinar to wrap everything up here, and it will be on the 12th of September. And then we're excited to announce that another one of our Moira Federation colleagues, David Hopper, is going to start a webinar series in our time slot, the second Saturday, starting in October. So we'll
Yes, and I think he's calling it the journey of the soul.
yeah, we'll get more information out on that the closer we get to it. So,
and don't forget to wish BL birthday blessings. Her birthday was just a few days ago.
thank you.
Yeah. Happy birthday, my dear.
Thank you. Yeah, that good old Leo Sunny BL.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael, for all of your behind the scenes work. We couldn't do it without you. So
That's right. That's right. We thank you all for attending. We thank Michael for working behind the scenes and helping us out. And I thank BL for being my partner in all of this. I think that our relationship in doing this is really good. I mean, I really enjoy working together. I hope that is sensed and felt. So, yeah. So thank you all.
yes, one of us is the Virgo and the other is the Pisces here in these, and we we work together and balance each other as best as we can.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for the birthday wishes, and good night. We'll see you next time around.
Right. Good night, all.